You ever heard of Sky Elijah Metawalla? Well, he was abducted at 2 years of age.
How does a happy-go-lucky 2-year-old boy simply vanish off the earth?
Did the little boy get kidnapped? Those kind of things just don't happen in that community.
Julia holds the key to this case.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Amber, and on Mondays, I like to post creepy videos. Today I have another missing person case, and just so you guys are aware, the term creepy just means something that makes you uncomfortable, and it's unusual, and it's bizarre, and that's exactly what missing people cases make me feel. So when I say creepy video, I'm in no means being disrespectful to the family or the people missing themselves. It's just a term I'm using to describe the type of content that I like to provide on this channel. As with all missing person cases, I will leave any sources and or pertinent links down below in the description box. Today I'm going to be discussing the very uncanny and unusual disappearance of Sky Metawalla, who went missing on November 6th, 2011 after his mother left him in the car, in his car seat allegedly, as she ran out of gas, went to the gas station with her 4-year-old daughter, and when she returned, he was missing, and he's been missing ever since. The case details surrounding this are very suspicious. I am certain that a ton of people have made up their mind as to what they think or who truly is probably responsible for his disappearance, but as we speak, nobody is in custody for his disappearance, and nobody is really being blamed for it officially in a legal sense of the term. So let's get into some of the background details about this case, and then we'll get into some theories about this case. There are a ton of speculations as to why he went missing, who was responsible, what happened, and also sort of what I think about this after doing a ton of research on this case. Okay, before I really get into the case, I also wanted to let you guys know, because so many of you have reached out to me and the support has been overwhelming about my dog Honey Bunny and her attack. She was attacked over a week ago by 2 pit bulls. She's doing so much better, but yeah, there's a lot that I want to talk about, so I'm going to make an entire video dedicated to an update on Honey Bunny and exactly what happened. So Sky was only 2 years old when he went missing. The day that happened, his mother, according to his mother, whose name is Julie Markova, I believe, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, but her name is Julie. According to her, she was on her way to the hospital, and according to her, he was sick. So she was going to take him to the hospital, and on the way there, she ran into car problems. I believe she said that she ran out of gas, although we'll get into what investigators found out about her car in a little bit. So she runs out of gas, allegedly. So she has Sky in the back seat in his car seat with her, and also her 4-year-old daughter, Mally, I believe her name is. And when she runs out of gas, rather than taking both of the children, she takes her 4-year-old daughter, leaves Sky in the car, buckled into a seatbelt in the car, with the doors not locked, and walks a mile to the nearest gas station. Well, instead of actually purchasing gas, apparently all she did was wander around some neighborhood that was near that gas station. So she didn't get gas. She didn't call authorities. In fact, she waited about an hour, according to the sources I found online, and she called a friend who then drove her back to her car, didn't purchase any gas, no gas can, nothing like that, nothing to indicate that she was actually having car problems. And it was then when she noticed that Sky was missing.
When she returned to the car, Sky was gone.
Now, when authorities came, she told them the story that she left him in the vehicle, in his car seat, was only supposed to be gone for a little bit to get gas. I don't know why she took her daughter and didn't leave her there too. Probably because she could walk. Maybe she would have gotten out of the car. Whenever I do these cases, I try to stay as unbiased as possible, but this case really hits home because it has to do with a mother basically, essentially abandoning her 2-year-old son in the middle of nowhere to go get gas, when she easily could have had her 4-year-old daughter walk and she could carry her son, in my opinion. I don't know. Also, she could have very well called authorities the moment she arrived to the gas station, but of course she didn't do that. So she comes back and he's missing. And that is where this case starts. So that was November 6th, 2011. He was 2 years old at the time. A little bit of background about Sky and his parents and his sister. Both Sky's parents were immigrants from other countries. So his mother, Julia, immigrated from Russia, and his father, Solomon Metawala, was actually originally from Pakistan. So they were both legal immigrants to the United States. Julia was only 12 years old when she migrated from Russia to the United States. And 3 years later, when she was 15, is when she actually started dating Solomon Metawala. And I guess they met where she was working at a restaurant. She worked there during high school. After she graduated high school, they did end up moving together to Bellevue, Washington. Now, Bellevue is a city that I am also very familiar with because when I did live in Kirkland, Washington, my favorite mall to go shopping at was Bellevue Mall. So it is interesting to me to read about a case that I know so many of the places are very familiar to me, so I can sort of see it transpire in my head as I'm telling the story. I do want to give a quick shout out to a fellow YouTube channel here, and it is actually a podcast channel that goes by the name of Trace Evidence Podcast. Now, I've discovered this podcast probably a month ago, and I have not listened to all of them. I think he has about 30 cases, but he does a similar content to mine and on other people like me on YouTube, except for his is strictly podcast format. But I did listen to the one he did on Sky Metawala, and I did take notes, and so I think it's only fair to give him a shout out because he is a very talented channel, and if you guys like listening to true crime cases and you don't always want to watch them, like to listen to them. So if you guys want a new true crime podcast to listen to, definitely check out Trace Evidence Podcast down below and let him know that I sent you. I can tell I haven't done this in a while because I just filmed about 20 minutes with the mic off. According to sources, she got her naturalization U.S. citizenship before he did, and one of the reasons that she married him was because she was being pressured into thinking that he would be getting deported if he didn't marry her. So essentially getting a green card through marriage. I'm not exactly sure how that process is, but I do know that if you marry someone who is a citizen, then I believe that makes you a citizen also. I could be wrong. That's not too important about this case, but also she claims that he was very controlling.
Quote, "My former husband is a sadistic Muslim Pakistani. No one has any idea. This is all too difficult."
He sort of, according to Julia, he sort of created this codependent relationship where he was controlling about what she did, where she was. He says he was ultimately attracted to her because of her beauty.
She's beyond beautiful.
That's one of the first things he says about her was her beauty. Now, obviously, that's what someone looks like is something that essentially draws you into a person. I guess, it's attraction. It's something that we can't help. Like, you can't fake attraction internally to yourself. You know who you're attracted to and you know who you're not attracted to. But he sort of makes it a very big point that that's what he liked about her, or loved about her, was the way she looked. Now, there's not really any interviews from her whatsoever because after the disappearance of her son, she lawyered up and she's refused to publicly discuss her son and the details regarding him missing and that day. Basically, she spoke to the police that day, but that's about it.
You don't want to cooperate with the police?
They want the police.
But when it comes to Sky's disappearance?
Not so much.
So in 2003, they finally did get married and they did move to Bellevue, Washington together. Since Solomon was from Pakistan, he was not obviously a Christian. Well, he did, in 2005, did convert to Christianity, and I guess his parents were very upset about this because that's not the religion they were themselves. That's not how they raised him, and they blamed Julia a lot for this. After their marriage, things just got worse for the couple. In 2007, they were having a lot of, their entire relationship, they were facing a lot of financial problems. And then in 2007, they had a baby girl named Mally. And after she gave birth, the relationship improved just a little bit, but then things just got worse. In 2008, they moved to Kirkland, Washington. And like I said before, Kirkland is one of the most expensive cities to live in Washington. Where I lived, like I said, I lived in a studio apartment. It was walking distance to the water. That was my favorite place I've ever lived. And in fact, I would love to live there again. But it's just a beautiful city, and it seems to be, it's like a city that's safe.
Did the little boy get kidnapped? Those kind of things just don't happen in that community.
Like, everybody knows your name. You can walk to Starbucks with your dog. I'm very familiar with Kirkland, and you just don't hear about these sort of things happening. Now, I've always said this before: kidnappings, child predators, murder, abuse of any sort, it's not necessarily, it definitely is not defined by a socioeconomic status. It's not defined by a race, a culture, a nationality, a sex. Those things happen anywhere and everywhere, and different people of all walks of life are capable of, unfortunately, these disgusting and horrific crimes upon each other and upon animals and upon, you know, oneself, whatever. But in Kirkland, it's just not very common that kids go missing. It's not common for this sort of thing to be in existence. The home that they purchased was $800,000. Now that's a lot of money, and it probably wasn't a very big home. So in 2008, as we know, the financial crisis hit the United States pretty hard, and it hit them harder, yet they still lived in Kirkland, and they were also paying a mortgage on their condo in Bellevue. I guess it was a condo that they lived in, not an apartment. And then in 2009 is when Sky was born. During her pregnancy with Sky, their financial problems got even worse, and they did end up having to, I don't know if, I think they had to foreclose on their home in Kirkland, and they were forced to move back to Bellevue. And during this time, during her pregnancy with Sky, Julia was actually put on to antidepressants. Now, to be put on an antidepressant during your pregnancy, you know, to me, it kind of signifies that she truly was really, like, truly depressed, because from my understanding, when you're pregnant, you don't really want to put any sort of thing into your body, especially a chemical thing that could alter anything, because it could be harmful to the baby. But obviously her doctor prescribed her antidepressants. And one of the things that Solomon has said online and in interviews is that she began to become very OCD about cleanliness.
Julia's tortured ritual of cleaning the house got even worse.
It was just very, very bad.
Like, she would spend hours, 7 days a week, cleaning their house. Like, first it was, I think it was like 3 to 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, cleaning the house. And then slowly, and then it turned into 5 to 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours every single day. It got to the point after Sky was born that the whole family was forced to eat outside. She wouldn't even let them eat inside because she was obsessed with things being clean and things being in an ordinary sort of way. Now, I can say, if there was abuse, if there was controlling abuse that existed in the relationship between Solomon and Julia, speaking from personal experience, something like having order in your home does fill that void of seeking control in your own life. When you don't feel like you have control of your own life, whether it's the finances, whether it's an abusive partner, whether it's whatever it is, there's a lot of different forms of control that a person can do to someone else. It could be control emotionally, financially, even the sex. People can try and control you that way. There's a lot of different things. And OCD, from my very small understanding of it and experience with it, is something that does help someone's psyche feel like they're more in control. And perhaps if Julia was dealing with any sort of controlling aspects in her life from someone else, perhaps she developed these crazy, obsessive cleaning tendencies out of her own self-preservation. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's right, wrong, and different. I'm just saying maybe that's what happened. Again, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't pretend to be. I have very limited knowledge on that situation. There were even times when they got noise complaints because she was constantly running the vacuum. Now, an interesting thing that happened to both Solomon and Julia is when Sky was only 2 months old. 2 months old. So that's a tiny little baby. I mean, they don't talk, they don't do anything at that age, do you know what I mean? But like cry and eat and sleep, and they need protection like crazy. Apparently, so they were at a Target in Redmond, Washington, and I have been to this Target. I know exactly, unless they've rebuilt it or something like that at the time, but I've been to a Target in Redmond, Washington. They left their 2-month-old son in the car.
You're clearly remorseful for leaving Sky in the car.
100%.
Now, when someone noticed this, they obviously called authorities. They came, and the parents both said that, oh, no, we were only in there for like 10 minutes or something. They tried to brush it off as if they just left the baby in the car, ran inside really quick, and came back. Now, even if that were the case, I don't know how... I personally don't understand how someone could leave their 2-month-old child, in a vehicle alone for any amount of time. But guess how long they left the baby in the car for? According to surveillance tapes, they left the baby in the car for about 55 minutes. 55 minutes. Sky was already in there, so they both were cited. There were no criminal charges pressed. I guess they did have to take parenting classes, and then I guess they did have to do community service, and they were on probation for 1 year. And then that was it. Pretty much that's what happened with that. You know, as we learn, Julia leaves Sky in the car unattended again, and this time with very severe consequences. So in 2010, Julia's psychological problems began to get out of control, and there was intervention. So when Julia turned 29 years old, she actually had to go to a psychiatric hospital because I believe she was suicidal. And on multiple occasions, she actually told Solomon that she had these weird dreams of actually murdering her own kids. Now, I have heard of postpartum depression. I've heard that there's this thing called postpartum depression that some women will get after they give birth to a baby. So I don't understand the hormonal changes that happen when you give a baby and then you get postpartum depression. But apparently it is something that is common and that does eventually go away. Now, perhaps she got postpartum depression right away with her first child and maybe never addressed it fully, and then when it came time to deliver Sky and then be a mom to Sky, it just went out of control. But she did tell Solomon several times that she thought of murdering the kids, which is scary. You know what I mean? Whether anyone thought she would act upon it or not, that's something I couldn't even imagine thinking that about my dog. And my dog is literally like a child to me. I guess her psychiatrist only deemed her as having OCD, which we could already, as someone who is not a psychiatrist, you already know someone that has the desire to clean 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, their house, which is probably immaculate. We all pretty much know that that's OCD. So that's what she was diagnosed with. What's crazy is shortly after this, Solomon just couldn't take it anymore. You don't hear a lot about his parenting until after he wants to apply for divorce. He wants to divorce Julia because he just cannot take it because of the constant cleaning, of the constant threats upon their children, like I said, whether she intended to act upon them or not. He just didn't want to be part of this marriage anymore, and he filed for divorce. During this time, Julia actually did send him a text message, and to me, it sounds like someone who was threatening suicide. Now, Julia denies this 100%. She said, I'm going to read it. She said, please, I'm begging with my whole heart, help me find a peaceful way to die. I cannot live another day and cause you, Mally and Sky, any more suffering. I'm dead inside anyway and have been dead for a long time. You will not miss me at all, and Mally and Sky have the best daddy in the world, so I know that they will be okay. So after this, Solomon contacted the police because that, if anything, that's a definite cry for help. Julia, of course, denied being suicidal to authorities, as she denied having any sort of depression or anything like that. She even denied being diagnosed with OCD, which we know allegedly is true. So Julia then entered into a facility. They did a global assessment of functioning score on her. So basically, you can be scored from 1 to 100. And this I'm actually taking right from the Trace Evidence podcast. 1 to 100, and 1 being severely impaired, at a rating of 100 being extremely high functioning. So when they first took her in and they did this assessment on her, she scored a 15. So as far as being a danger to herself and others. Now, that is the same that's the same sort of rating where people that try and commit suicide or are a danger to other people. So the fact that she scored so low means she's a pretty high danger to either herself or her kids. So while this was going on and with the impeding divorce, she started to accuse Solomon of some very disgusting things. She said he was physically abusive with the kids, that she had actually caused bruises on the children, I believe with a wooden spoon, and herself. And she even accused him of sexually assaulting their daughter. Now, CPS investigated all of these claims, and they came to the conclusion that they were all unfounded claims. So basically, they didn't find any signs of abuse on the kids. The kids didn't, like, obviously Sky was only 2 years old, that there are ways that investigators can talk to children, CPS can talk to kids, and they use dolls and whatnot, and they can kind of distinguish a good touch from a parent to a bad one. And they didn't determine that anything like that had happened to Mally, the daughter. Now, I already know what you're thinking in the comments. You never 100% know, unfortunately, when sexual abuse has happened. There's never a definitive yes or no, unless you're the person that is